Hey everybody. It is now the 12th of July, which means I've had my new camera for 2 days, technically. Almost three, if you count the Friday, which I don't, because I believe I talked about how busy it was going straight into Friday, and I may have only talked about that on Patreon. But basically, I was so very busy this weekend with the new camera, I didn't get the settings fully set up, so I was still running, even on this day, with less than ideal settings. Still happy with the results that I got. Went out with my photographer friend that morning. We went and saw a great blue heron. Among many things, we saw this, and I thought it would be a good example of another one where I go, here's my 30 frames a second. I picked out a couple of them here because I had the full range as it was going. This great blue heron comes in for a landing, and I thought it was interesting. It goes in. Whoa. It goes in for a landing, and the first thing it does is its legs kind of skim the water, and it throws its wings out to kind of stop itself. But then it pulls back up, throws the wings forward to really stop that momentum, and then come back down and lands. I got to get it on video at some point because that is fascinating to see, and then it lands there with that. And then I have a bird here that I've yet to identify. I tried, but it's brown. I don't know. Merlin thought no, absolutely nothing on this photo. It had zero suggestions, couldn't figure it out because it's just so very brown. And then I did this one and it said Western Wood Pewee. And that does not match what's in the book for a Western Wood Pewee, given how brown it is. So maybe it's a juvenile and that's just not very well documented yet. I'm sure I'll come back to that at another point in time. I'm not exactly positive right now. But again, we went out in the morning. We saw things like osprey, right overhead, not the sharpest on the actual face of it, which was a little disappointing, but got to see it up in the sky pretty far, but I cropped in as best I could to make the photo somewhat interesting. I thought that was cool. A really cool one for my photographer friend, she had never seen, so this was a lifer for her, the snowy egret. I have seen it a couple of times, but never this close in order to get some photos of it. Not the best photos. I think with my settings set up a little better, it could have been a little bit better, but I'm certainly happy about it. They are certainly the best ones that I have gotten thus far of a snowy egret. Yeah. Face is just a little bit blurry there where we're moving a little fast for what I was doing, but pretty cool. What else did we see? Well, we were out there, not too much else super exciting in the morning. As I was going by, there was a moment, actually, where's that osprey? This is kind of cool, even though the photo, after the first part of the day where we were walking, we went and set up with camping chairs and tripods and just sat and watched for a while out over this water. And we saw the osprey do a dive down. It was being chased by a blackbird. And it wasn't going down necessarily like dive into the water and get a fish or anything, but it was just kind of hanging around trying to get away from this blackbird at one point, and I thought that was kind of neat. Um, got some pretty clear photos. I am really happy with this one in particular of the eastern kingbird. I think this turned out pretty well, and I also will say that this took me probably about four times the length that it typically has been taking me to edit photos because of said photographer friend who is better in many ways and explaining to me, oh, you should be using masks and there's all these tools that you could be doing. And there's the exact same software I've been using, and I've just gotten complacent over many, many years of doing this and trying to get through them as fast as I can so I can move on to doing something else. And really taking that time to pull back and go, hold on, how can I make this photo the best that it can instead of, all right, let's try to get through all of these as quickly as possible. I'm much happier with the results on this one in particular. It reminds me because I know I spent a lot of time staring at this as I was trying to make it really nice. And I'm happy about it. It's cool. That was the first half of the day. Then I went back home and recorded some video games with my sister right up until the minute we got stuck on a boss that we were really trying to beat. So it was right up until the minute of, oh, I absolutely have to leave or I will be late to go back out and do more birding with friends that I am now leading a group of like 4 people. And we saw things such as a goldfinch, mallards, a couple different mallards here. Really, really interesting. I've been to this location a few times. I forgot about it between the first time and the second time of visiting this location, and then between taking these photos and then editing them and then recording about editing them for Patreon just a moment ago, where I was going, oh, it's fascinating that you see these birds, these young juvenile mallards that are starting to get their color in. I've never seen that before. And we have another one here where you can really see this kind of like green It's fascinating the different colors that you can get here. This is one's far more like a dark blue, and we've got bits of like almost a teal blue with the way that this is coming in, and then this one's almost greenish. They'll all look fairly similar. The mallards don't all look exactly the same, but they will eventually get all of those in, and they'll all be a little bit different. If you've ever seen a mallard in the different sunlight, they can have that iridescence all the way through. So I guess this is coming in patches for that. But that's somewhat interesting about the mallards. The other thing is that when I was here weeks ago, I made the discovery where I went, oh, I've never really thought about it. I knew that if the food source is plentiful and the birds feel safe in this environment, they will try to have multiple egg laying runs, goes at that. Clutches, I don't know the exact terminology. They will attempt to have children more than one time in one breeding season if they can. And so that means they are not always on the same time. Like they're naturally going to always be slightly different. There's not always You're not going to go out and see all the birds that could have babies all have babies and they all look at the same. They will be staggered because some of them start earlier, some of them start later, some of them will have multiple. So a few weeks ago when I was at this location, we saw a mother mallard with tiny little ducklings, little yellow ducklings. I think that's these here where they've already grown up to this point. On the same day a few weeks ago, we saw ones closer to this age, maybe a little bit older, that I'm really betting are the ones I just was showing you with the color starting to come in on the males, because it's only been a few weeks and they've clearly aged up. And I don't know why I went, oh, I've had that realization of, yeah, they have them at different points in the year. And so you'll see different stages of babies growing up to adulthood throughout that's not a realization. I literally said it while I was out there talking to this group explaining, oh yeah, I was here a few weeks ago and I saw them. I just forgot between then and editing. But we did see those. That was pretty cool. The really coolest thing, I think, if I had to say, is the red-tailed hawk. We had some morphs of them. It was really hard to tell. I tried looking through the book. I am not an expert on it by any means. It looks really different in the different lighting here, but this was probably the coolest that we got. Like these are just amazing photos, right? Like for a flying over directly overhead, it was close enough that I got some pretty decent shots. There was a pair of them out there that were flying about quite a bit while we were there, so we got a good display as they were really kind of showing off for us as it was out there. And I did manage to get a photo with some of the leaves as they were going over the trees with a pair of them there. But my favorite one that came out was one as I was using my 30 frames a second and kind of tracking the bird and taking the photo. It went behind the tree, and I probably would not have gotten this photo if I didn't have the 30 frames going the whole time with the pre-capture and everything. So it continued taking the photos after I went, I might be done. And then this happened where it was behind the tree and yet it's still focused on it. So you still get to see it almost entirely, undisturbed by all of the foliage that I was shooting through. And that's just like, that's cool. I've never gotten a shot like that before. And it makes me go, well, I'd like to do that again. That's amazing. And I really like that. Really happy about that. It was pretty cool. A great time out, great friends, great birds, great new camera. That's not in the proper priority order. Yeah. I should have ordered that differently if I was going to go top to bottom, but it was all true. So I'm really happy about it. That's all. Bye, everybody.